Welcome to the Painting Lines Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things tennis. Join Erik and Aidan in their discussion for updates on news and pop culture, and from hot takes to betting, they've got you covered.
Ready? Play.
Aidan, how about you give us a little background on the big three to start things off?
The big three are, they're really a special combination of players. It's really an anomaly that they all came around at the same time, and I think we're really lucky that we got to see them for most of my life. It really started with Federer when he turned pro in 1998. He was 17 years old, and it only took him 1 year to break into the top 100, which he did in 1999. He won his first title in Milan in 2001 and got his first Grand Slam at Wimbledon in 2003. But his dominance started in 2004 when he won 3 Grand Slams and 11 titles. And at that point, he was already being considered one of the best players of all time, and he was only 23 years old. Nadal came onto the scene a little bit at a younger age, but it was a little bit later than Federer. He turned pro in 2001, but he was only 15 years old. He ended up breaking into the top 100 in 2003 and then won his first title in 2004 in Sopot, Poland. And then he won his first Grand Slam the following year at the French Open. Finally, Djokovic turned pro the latest. He turned pro in 2004 at age 17. And he broke into the top 100 in 2005 and won his first title in 2006 in Amersfoort, Netherlands. And then his first Grand Slam actually came 2 years after that at the 2008 Australian Open. So that's kind of like a quick background of how these guys emerged onto the scene.
And, yeah, thanks for giving our audience a little context. But wow, what a trio in sports! Like you said, I don't think there's anything like that or been anything like that. How about we start with who your favorite is of the big three and why?
Oh, well, that's a tough question because it's hard not to say Federer is your favorite. I think he's probably everyone's favorite because of how smooth his game is, how beautiful it is to watch. It's like as artistic as tennis can get, that's Federer.
It's an art.
If you're looking at it, I have to say probably my favorite at this point is Djokovic because of just how powerful his mindset is.
Mm-hmm.
I think watching what turned me from a Federer fan to a Djokovic fan was really the 2021 French Open when he beat Tsitsipas coming back from down 2-0. You just saw him flip a switch in his mind and just mentally break Tsitsipas.
I can't believe you flipped. What a traitor.
It's tough though, but he's just so it's crazy to see how mentally strong he is.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with Federer for me. He's my favorite. I do respect Djokovic immensely, though, just because he's always kind of played that villain role out of the big three. Like, it was always Federer, Nadal starting up. And then people didn't really give Djokovic credit. Like, fans are very disrespectful to him. The media didn't really portray him like they did Nadal and Federer. So even though Federer is my favorite of the big three, I think I respect Djokovic the most. I think he's had to come through or get over the most adversity of them. I know Nadal's struggling right now with the injuries. Can't believe he's still going, but I think Djokovic is going to emerge, the absolute GOAT.
It's pretty crazy to see like the amount of injuries and stuff that Nadal has gone through. Like I remember way back in like 2012 or something for the Olympics, Nadal already was having knee issues and stuff like that. And now he's been playing for like 10 more years.
Yeah, crazy. All right, so we established our favorites and why. How about you said that was a pretty tough question, huh?
Yeah.
All right, let me ask you this then. Who do you think could have been great if it wasn't for the big three?
Oh my gosh. Well, we do have kind of something we can go off of for that because we know how many times these guys they were in finals and they beat a person that had never been in a final before or never ended up winning a final. So if we look back all the way back in 2003, Federer was already beating people that never ended up winning a title. We have people like Philippoussis, Baghdadis, Gonzalez, and Soderling. They all lost to Federer in finals and then never ended up winning a title and retired.
Oh, jeez.
Soderling especially is a crazy one because he beat Nadal in it was such a famous match because I believe it was the first time Nadal ever lost at Roland Garros. And so he beat Nadal and everyone was like, wow, this guy is, how did he just do that? And then Federer beat him and it won his only French Open.
Wow. For me, I'm going to go with Andy Roddick. I would have loved to see him, come on the scene, have a career. Like when he won that US Open in 2002.
Yeah, it was around there, yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
2003.
He was supposed to be the next big guy. He was going to go get out there, be a
savior of American tennis.
Exactly. But because of Federer.
Yeah, you look at guys like that, or like guys like Tsonga or Berdych or even Kevin Anderson later on. You're looking at guys where they had chances to win these finals, and they just, because of the fact that they happened to reach their peak at the same time as possibly the three best players of all time. You can't. They never got the chance to actually win anything.
I know.
I mean, Roddick especially, like you mentioned, he lost 4 Grand Slam. He won his one, but he lost 4 Grand Slam finals all to Federer.
Oh, I can't even imagine. That must just have been such a toll on your head right there. Like, how do you go out and play a sport where you just lose more than you win?
It's really difficult to imagine.
All right, let's get into how you would rank the big three. And we could do subjective rankings too, because we know, statistically, Djokovic, Nadal, Federer, based on titles, wins, time at number one.
Is that the objective ranking? I don't really know if that's the. I think that even objectively, you could say that you could without being overly subjective put Federer above Nadal.
How would you do that?
Well, the way that I justify it in terms of the statistics is if you look at just their head-to-head, right? I'm fairly confident that Nadal has more head-to-head wins, but if you look at the by surface, Federer actually has a better record against him on hard court and on grass. You're just looking at how dominant Nadal was on clay. So the ranking of them objectively really depends on how much you weigh how dominant Nadal's clay court performances are. So
would you discount that in a sense? Like kind of
I think if you examine it as like, oh, only a third of the matches are on clay, so like count that for 1/3. And you say, okay, 1/3 goes to Nadal, but then 1/3 or 2/3 goes to Federer. So if you look at it that way, you could say Federer is better on more surfaces, so therefore he's the better player overall. But then you also have to balance that with Nadal was just so ridiculously dominant, and just his record is so crazy against Federer on clay that you could say, okay, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that he had a slightly worse record on these other two surfaces because on clay it was just so one-sided.
So what camp are you in then?
I have to say that I'm in the camp that I think Federer is the better player overall, because I think that clay court is it's a small portion of the season. Like if he was that dominant, I think on hard court, like if he dominated Federer that like much on hard court, I would say that Nadal is the better player. But because clay court's such like a specified aspect of it, I have to rank him Djokovic, Federer, Nadal.
Djokovic, Federer, Nadal.
Do you think that Nadal is the better player over Federer?
No. My ranking is Federer, Djokovic, Nadal. And
okay.
Yeah. I mean, you can't deny Djokovic's, statistical greatness with the most majors, most wins. most time at number one. And
Yeah, he
then
just
kind of
passed
like you said,
Steffi Graf last week, so
yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
congratulations to him.
Yeah.
Um, I'm subjectively a Federer fan. Like you said, it's an art watching him play, and the way he just sets up points. I think he has the best tennis IQ of all of them for sure. Just watching him play.
I think
And
also a thing about Federer that's great to watch is he wasn't afraid of hitting the junk ball.
mhm,
Like you
right.
look at someone like Kyrgios now, where he throws out 300 junk balls in a match, and you're like, okay, whatever. It's doesn't mean as much. But when Federer would hit a tweener, or he would hit something between his legs, or he would just drop shot out of nowhere, it was such a crazy thing because you even though he did it like a surprisingly large amount, you would see it and you'd be like, oh my god, I can't believe he just did that. And that's, I think, one thing that made him even better to watch. He's like, you never knew what he was going to do next.
Yeah, I know. But I do think Nadal's the biggest hustler.
Oh,
I think he
100%.
is a grinder out there. Just watching him get balls that I would think were over. Those points are done. Even the opponent would just kind of sit there and look at that pretty little drop shot and then be like scrambling. Oh shoot, he just got that. And then I think that's a big part of his game, just never conceding points.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite matches to kind of compare, or two matches to compare, when you're looking at how like aggressive of a hustler and how tough it is to get the ball past Nadal on clay, is the difference between the two matches in 2019 that happened like a month apart, which was Federer versus Nadal both times. One was at the French Open and one was at Wimbledon. And if you watch those matches, in the first match, it doesn't look like Federer even belongs on the court with Nadal. Nadal is so dominant. Like Federer could not get a single ball past him because just he would hit it and the clay would just pick it up and stop it, and Nadal would get to it and he could not get the ball past him. Then you watch the match a month later at Wimbledon, and all of a sudden it's like a different players. And all of a sudden Federer, all of his shots are winners, and he beats Nadal handedly in I think 4 sets.
Wow. No, it's demoralizing playing against an opponent that just puts everything back. It's just like, come on. And then it's a slippery slope from there because you just get more frustrated with yourself. You start, being more aggressive, making moves that you probably wouldn't have before. And then the match just gets out of hand. You start losing yourself.
Yeah, and I mean that's why that's why tennis is such a mental game. I mean, it's like that like that match I was talking about earlier, the French Open with Djokovic and Tsitsipas. Like you look at that match and you're like, how did Tsitsipas lose this? And it was just because when Djokovic turned that mental switch and he wasn't missing anymore, all of a sudden Tsitsipas started doubting himself. He's like, I can't get it past this guy. What's going on? And just exactly like you're talking about, the slippery slope. It just
Hmm.
couldn't get through it.
Remember how I said I respect Djokovic? I think his mindset is the best in the game. He's got that, tough, gritty Eastern European mindset where this one story I love hearing it, where he's a kid, he's gathered around his, family table. They're very poor in Serbia, and his dad puts $1 on the table, smacks it and says like, this is it. This is all we have. We like you when you play tennis, go out there and give it your all because you come from nothing. You have nothing to lose. Like, make this your life. And he's done exactly that. He's got that lion mentality to him. He goes out there, gives it all, played, brutally injured in the Australian Open. Pretty sure he had a quarter of an inch hamstring tear, and he still went out there and got it done. This guy gets there,
Yeah, I
doesn't
mean,
take advantage of anything.
yeah, keeping that hungry wolf mentality is tough too. I mean, like you look at it in other sports. This is slightly tangential, but if you look at someone like Conor McGregor when he was coming up, how dominant he was when he was like 25, 26, and then all of a sudden he gets all the stuff he wants and he has all this money and he just kind of falls off a little bit. And it's hard to keep that mentality going when you're already at the top. So the
Yeah.
fact that Djokovic, I mean, really all of them, the fact that they can stay at this peak level, I think that's what made one of the parts that made them so great was they were able to push each other to
Hmm.
stay at the top. I think if any one of them had been this dominant alone, they wouldn't have won as many titles and stuff. They probably would
Hmm.
have taken more time off because without someone to compete against, it's really hard to push yourself to get to that next level.
Right. And that brings us into our next question. Like, do you think the big three overall positively or negatively impacted tennis? And you said it yourself. I think that, they did push each other. They made this sport so entertaining to watch with the rivalries, the drama, the, victory speeches, the loser speeches. I just enjoyed watching those three go at it. And it's sad to see Federer's retired, Nadal's on his way out, and then right now it's just Djokovic beating up on all these new generation guys.
I think, yeah. I mean, in terms of overall positive, I think you have to say because of like the impact on the world, like the tennis world, and like just the amount of energy they brought to fans and how entertaining they were. You have to say they were a positive, but you can't discount how much of an like negative they were to other players. Like we already talked about some of the people that have retired that they never won a final, but there are still guys that are playing like Tsitsipas, Berrettini, Kyrgios, Rude. These guys have all like lost finals, and they haven't gotten the chance to break through because of the big three. Like all
Hmm.
these guys are still in the league. I mean, even Medvedev and team who have wins, it's like they've lost multiple finals to the big three, and you have to consider that to be a negative because these other guys' careers are being like negatively impacted by the big three being so dominant.
Hmm. No, you're right. You're right. I wonder if there'll be a next big three.
I mean, who would
I
who
could
would
see.
who would you think it would be if there was a next big like after in let's say 2026 Djokovic retires and you're looking at a completely open field now.
All right. I'm putting Carlos Alcaraz. And maybe I'm gonna leave it at two for now because I don't see someone that has as much potential as they do coming on just quite yet. That's subject to change, but no one's really,
You said
you know,
Medvedev and Alcaraz?
Medvedev and Alcaraz. I think those two are just gonna battle it out for the next decade or
I
so.
can yeah. I think that's I agree that I think they'll probably be the best too, but I think that it won't be the same level of dominance as like the big three. I think like they'll win the majority of the tournaments probably, but I think you'll see other guys sneak out like a grand slam here and there.
Yeah, and that's just part of it. That happened. That happened during the Big Three's reign. It's gonna happen again.
But I think it's going to be like different. I think like when you look at the big three, like you look at the statistics of how many tournaments they won, and it's like it's almost incomprehensible. Like they won like 80% of all of the grand slams versus if you're looking at I think after they retire, I think you're going to be seeing oh, they win like maybe they win half of them, maybe they
Mhm.
win like 40% of them, but I think it's going to be like oh, Medvedev wins one in the year and Alcaraz wins one in the year, and then two other guys win it.
Some
And like
wild
you see,
cards.
you see two wild cards in the year, but you don't see like they'll win maybe one per year each, but it won't be like oh they're winning everything and some guys sneaking one out every once in a while.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know. I mean, who knows? There could be the next 18, 19-year-old we see in the next couple years who will just blow by. Like Ben Shelton, he's got some good potential.
Yeah, I mean that was
He's
crazy.
young.
That was
He's
his first
young
Grand
too.
Slam, right? This year
Yeah.
in the Australian
Yeah.
Open.
Yeah.
Whew,
Uh-huh.
that's a
And
pretty
then
wild run to take at your first Grand Slam.
another young gun who I think has immense potential is Holger Rune.
Yeah.
He's kind of a head case though. He needs to He needs to buckle down because he has the talent.
He needs
And
to
he's got the skill.
wait for Djokovic to retire and then hire him as a coach.
Hey, there we go.
I think if Djokovic was if Djokovic was Tsitsipas's coach, you'd have like the best player in the world. Like I think Tsitsipas could become the best if he had Djokovic as a coach and Djokovic could teach him how to have like a better mindset. Because Tsitsipas is just completely overtaken by his mindset.
I would love to be a fly in the room after every Grand Slam that he's lost or every big title that he's lost. I feel like his dad yells at him and since he just sits there and takes it. I feel like he still treats him like he's a 13-year-old kid.
He probably does.
Oh man.
Which is just rough to think about.
I know. You see him try to hit on Margot Robbie at the Australian Open?
That's pretty crazy. That's a crazy call out for Tsitsipas.
He was giving his speech and they asked him who he would like to see at the tournament, and he goes, "Oh, my favorite actress, Margot Robbie."
Damn.
If you all get her here soon.
Damn.
Congrats to him though for shooting his shot.
We need
more personality
in the public media.
Yeah, we need more personality out of him.
Yeah.
He's kind of a not boring player to watch, but he's very, he keeps to himself. He's not really emotional out on the court.
Yeah. Well, he is, but it's not like. I feel like it's like more like internal, like he's just like getting mad at himself really aggressively.
Yeah, there's a difference because
he's not like you're not looking at McEnroe out there.
I know.
Like, you cannot be serious.
Yeah. But jumping back to the big three, I think they all have, their own personalities in a way where you have the stoic Federer mindset where you can't break him. Like I've only seen him angry a few times. And then you have Djokovic who lets out that big roar, every time. And he's always that villain in the crowd, like putting his finger up to his ear, putting his finger up to the mouth. Like Djokovic likes to egg on and work the crowd.
But he uses the crowd to his advantage. It's so crazy.
Yeah. I think he almost likes the crowd against him,
Have you ever seen
he gets that extra fire?
Have you ever seen the interview with Medvedev after his match?
Oh yeah.
When he's talking about the crowd and he's like, "You guys were all booing me and I just used that as energy. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're the reason I won this match."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's such a good line." Because he just silenced everyone in the crowd.
I know. But on the contrary, I think in order for him, like if he wants to be up there in tennis, I think he needs to get the crowd on his side. I think I can relate early Djokovic to Medvedev now. Like the crowd generally roots against them, and Djokovic didn't handle the crowd that well either when he was young, but now he's kind of learned to work it. He gets it behind him now. I think Medvedev needs to do the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's just tough. I don't know what, like, I think people just hate on Medvedev because of how, like, his game kind of looks a little weird.
It looks so awkward.
It does, but he's so good. So you're like, you got to respect it because you're like, he beats the best players in the world this way. So we have to understand that this guy's top level.
I know. How much longer do you think Djokovic's reign is going to last? How many more years does he have?
I was thinking about this earlier, and I feel like what's going to happen is Nadal is going to retire, I think, relatively soon, maybe like next year. And I think that Djokovic will continue to be dominant into 2025, maybe like the beginning of 2025, because he's 35 right now. I think he can go until he's 37 because I think he takes such crazy good care of his body, I feel like.
Yeah.
And what were you saying?
I was just going to say he can sustain it if he does, treat his body kind of like a Tom Brady,
Exactly. So I think he can sustain it. I think he maybe wins in the next, let's say the next 10 Grand Slams. I think he could win 5, but then I don't think he wins another one after that.
I think
maybe he wins one. But at that point, it would be crazy because he'd be 39.
I was gonna say, and at that point, he's probably just playing in Grand Slams. He's not doing those little tournaments.
You'd be seeing kind of what Federer did near the end of his career, where he wouldn't play in the French, he wouldn't play in any other tournaments. He would just show up to the Australian Open and Wimbledon.
Right. But an interesting point to Djokovic's reign. So his reign, I said how long is his reign going to last? Not how much longer is he going to play tennis? So how much longer
Is
do
he
you
going to be
think
super dominant?
do you think he'll stop playing after he starts losing?
I think he'll do what kind of a lot of players do, where
Yeah, where do you
he
draw the
plays
line?
he plays until like he goes a year or like a year and a half without winning a Grand Slam, and
Mhm.
then he announces, okay, this is going to be my final one.
Yeah, it's always sad when you see, these great players who have early exits to no-name players, and then you're just like, they're on
Yeah,
the
but like
back end of their career. It's
you
got to be
you
any day now.
you think about that, but it's crazy because you look at like in 2015 or so, and it was like, okay, Federer hasn't won a Grand Slam since 2012, and Nadal is facing so many injuries. Like, people were saying at that point, oh, this is the end of Federer and Nadal. We're gonna have to say goodbye to this great thing. And then we got like an extra 4 years out of them, and we
Mhm.
got some of maybe their best matches. I think my favorite match of all time came after people were saying that Federer was done.
And which match was that?
It was the 2017 Australian Open final.
That was a great one.
It was such a spectacular match. I stayed up until like 4 or 5 a.m. watching it, and it was just such a crazy match because I'm pretty sure that their seedings were like 17 versus 9 in the final,
I
because
love to
they
see that.
they hadn't played in a while and they'd been coming off of injuries, and all of a sudden they just come back and they're just at playing at the highest level.
Yeah. No, it's great seeing him back out there.
Yeah. So do you think over the next, like, after they all retire, do you think it's going to return to kind of the way it was before Federer's first Grand Slam? Like, looking back at like the 10 years, like 1994 to 2003, you're seeing like there were 45% of the winners of slams were unique people. There were 19 different winners in 40 slams versus only 9 different ones win over the next 16 years during the Big 3 era. Do you think it's going to go back to like there being a bunch of different ones, or like kind of like I was saying, or do you think that Medvedev and Alcaraz are going to be that dominant?
So I do think it's going to go back to what you said, how there's going to be a variety of people winning. I think that's at least how it's going to start out. But then as Medvedev and Alcaraz get older, I do think that they're going to start grabbing the majority of these Grand Slam titles.
That's kind of interesting too, because that kind of relates to that idea of like, oh, tennis players peak at, what is it, 24?
Hmm.
That's what they used to say, but like now it seems that experience is almost the important thing rather than the youth and the athleticism. Like, do you think that we're like tennis is becoming more of a experience and mental game rather than like just being able to hit the ball harder or spin it more than your opponent?
Yeah, I do. I do. I think, the fact that Carlos Alcaraz is young, he's, gritty, he doesn't let anything pass him. I think he's only going to get better. I think he's gonna stay, similar athletic ability for the next 3 or 4 years. But then after that, I think that's gonna start going downhill. But I think his game is just going to improve and improve because of that experience. So, you asked me if tennis players will they peak at 24? Who knows? I think peaking is peaking as an overall player versus peaking in your athletic capability is different, because I think there's a trade-off that you may get at a certain point where you lack the athletic ability, but then you gain the experience and the tennis knowledge to take your career to the next level.
I agree. I mean, I think it's tough to consider. I think that you have to look at the player of who it is to understand whether or not it's going to be like they get better with age or they get worse with age. Because if you look at certain players, you're like, this guy is entirely. It is weird though, because you look at you. I feel like you would look at Nadal and say this guy is an entirely physical based player, but somehow he's able to continue to play and be at a high level at such a young age. But he's got to be just an anomaly.
Mhm.
But I think with most players, if you look at them and you're like, this guy's really like the only reason he's good is because he hits the ball super hard and he runs really fast. Those are the guys that obviously aren't going to be able to perform better, or unless they change up their game.
Mhm. Speaking of, I kind of get a little bit of that from Rublev. He will sit at that baseline and just rip forehands and get those drop shots.
It's
But
fun to watch when Rublev is just locked in on his forehand and he's just just
picking a
going
corner, yeah.
exactly, just all out, and he swings like as hard as he can at every shot.
And you can hear it.
Yeah, it's great. But
But no, I
like
would like to see him come up more though and follow these great forehands up with some volleys. I think he stays back too much.
I agree. I think he sometimes gets like comfortable because he trusts his baseline shots so much that he will get like, because he can beat so many people from the baseline. So I think if he wants to take it to the next level, he has to kind of adjust his game so that he can beat these top level players.
Yeah, Medvedev gave him the work.
Yeah.
But all right, how about we jump into segments here?
Alrighty, sounds good.
All right, so what's new?
Okay, well, my
what's new in the tennis world, Aidan?
in the
What's
tennis
going on?
world, my what's new is Alcaraz is back. Like, it's crazy. He returned from this injury and just first tournament back, just runs through everyone and just wins the final. Goes to the second one, runs through everyone, meets Cam Norrie again. Second time in a row. And then he loses in 3 sets. I thought that was a lock. I thought he looked so hot going into that. I was like, 100%, it's a lock. He's going to win this tournament. And then he loses in a great match. And
creds to Norrie here.
Yeah, massive creds to Norrie. And then the funniest part I think about it was they then go to the Mexican Open and they just both pull out because I think they were probably expecting to lose earlier on in at least one of the two tournaments.
Yeah.
And so they were like, we can't do 3 finals in a row. Wow, that would have been pretty crazy though if they had
I
done
would have loved
that.
to see that.
Just 3 tournaments, just what do you even call that? The South America triple? It's like the Sunshine double.
Different surfaces though. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Mexican Open was on hard surface, whereas the other ones were on clay.
Maybe they were like, yeah, we don't want to play hardcore.
Yeah. Like, I'm too tired.
Yeah. What about you? What did you see
enjoy.
that was new?
New. So Denis Shapovalov had a perfect set. He served 24.
What do you mean perfect set?
He served a perfect set. He had 24 straight service points.
That's
incredible.
Insane.
I know. And talk about head cases. Who would have thought he?
Yeah, you would think it would be like
set.
Isner, right?
Yeah.
But that's crazy. I mean,
he was locked in.
That's got to be rarer than a perfect game in baseball almost. Like, when's the last time this has happened? I can't think of ever hearing about that.
Yeah, I can't either.
That's a pretty insane thing to happen.
I know. I hope he starts. I want to see him win a slam. I think like him a lot.
I'd like to see him win a slam. That'd be cool.
He needs to buckle down mentally though.
Do you think he's the better of the two like young Canadians?
No. I used to, but I think Auger Aliassime has just exploded onto the scene.
Aliassime's younger, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I actually know his agent.
That's
Funny
pretty cool.
story about that. Yeah, I was down in Miami and I'm talking to this kid. He told me he played college tennis at University of Miami. I'm like, oh, we should hit. And then we got into talking. He said he's from Canada. I'm like, oh, so you must know FAA. He says, dude, yeah, he's my client. I represent him. I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
That's pretty crazy.
Let me get a hitting sesh with him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're like, oh, we should play.
Yeah.
Play. That's
All
pretty
right.
wild, though.
All right, bet of the week. So this week we're gonna do just a general bet because there's no tournaments going on right now. Kind of a slower period before Indian Wells. So I will start off. I found this line: Alcaraz 1 total Grand Slam at plus 325. I think he'll get one. I think that's a
for
lock.
2023?
For 2023, yeah. I'm going to throw a hundo at that one. And then Let's see what you got.
Yeah, I went for a different player. I said that similar kind of what we've been talking about. I think Medvedev gets a slam this year, and I think it's going to happen all the way at the end. I think it's going to happen at the U.S. Open,
Ooh, cutting it close.
and it's a plus 3.6. So I think it's a reasonable bet to make. I think that you just saw him. He just played great against Djokovic and Rublev, and he looked spectacular.
Let me ask you this, though. Do you like Medvedev as a player? Because for me, betting on someone, I have to like them too. You know, like I should
think
separate emotion from reason, but you know, I enjoy watching Alcaraz play, so I'm going to get behind him.
it's like rooting.
I can't bet on Medvedev.
It's like rooting for a fantasy player when they're against your favorite team.
Yeah, yeah. So what you like him?
I think I do like Medvedev because I think that he's misunderstood. I remember a couple years ago, you actually showed me that interview with him where he talked about how he just can't handle how much just hate he gets for no good reason.
Yeah, wasn't he going to walk away from the game? He said,
Yeah,
I'm only going to play tournaments in Russia.
Yeah, he said, I'm only going to play tournaments in Russia or ones that I feel like playing.
Yeah, no, they treated him terribly there.
And I respected that so much. I've liked him so much more ever since I saw that interview. And so I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him win a slam. Then again, I think if he's playing against Djokovic, I'd probably still be rooting for Djokovic just because I think it would be cool for him to get up to 23 majors.
Right. Yeah. These are just fun little bets we'll have to check in on periodically.
Exactly.
All right. Match of the week. Who was yours?
My match of the week was Deminar versus Tommy Paul.
Oh,
just happened.
the
And
demon.
it was so crazy it's so fun to watch Deminar because he's just such a scrappy player. And so if you watch this match, I really highly recommend it because you see so many points where it looks like Tommy Paul has such the upper hand in the point, and then all of a sudden Deminar gets it back, and then he gets another one back, and then all of a sudden he hits a spectacular shot, and you're like, oh, how do you get that out of it? And then all of a sudden Tommy Paul's on the defense, and then Deminar finishes the point, and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah, that's also big for Deminar's first title at that level.
Yeah, I mean,
It's good to see him.
yeah, and it's cool.
Got
It's
one.
always cool to see someone win their first title like that because it could be the only one he wins in his career.
Yeah, or
mean,
it could just open the floodgates.
It could.
You know?
I mean, you look at someone like Jack Sock. Like Jack Sock, I'm pretty sure has won an ATP 1000.
Jeez.
I think he won the Paris Masters, but it's insane to see. Like he won that one tournament. He was ranked, I think, in the top 10 in the world, and that was the only one. That was the only big thing.
No,
really
everyone thought he was going to save American tennis.
Yeah,
He was
I
gonna be
remember
that guy.
the first time I heard about Jack Sock was he won this tournament called Kalamazoo, which is a junior tournament, and the under 18 winner gets an automatic bid into the U.S. Open. And then he went in there won his first round match or something like that.
Wow.
And I was like, this guy's gonna be the next big thing ever.
Yeah. Funny story about Jack Sock. My dad, he actually got to see the French Open, and he watched Jack Sock play back in, must have been 2015. And he kept double faulting. And then he screams to himself, hit the ball in the fucking square. And so now my dad tells that story every single time Jack
That's
Sock
great.
is playing on TV. Oh, I saw him at the French Open. I'm, yes, Dad, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
It's funny when you hear a story for the fifth time and you say, this time I'm gonna let him have it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, wait, you saw him play?
And wait, what did he say again?
Yeah, exactly. You just let him go with that one. You're like, I'm feeling generous today.
At least the story hasn't changed over time. Where
Exactly.
The
He's
fish
like,
got this
yeah,
big, then it was this big.
The fifth time he was actually playing against him.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. So my match of the week is Davidovich Fokina versus Rublev. Rublev saved 5 match points in the second set. He was down 6-1 in the second set tiebreaker. I'm sure Davidovich Fokina thought, okay, just going to serve it out. And then you got Rublev coming in clutch which I love to see because I'm not a big Davidovich Fokina fan.
See, he's down 5-1 in the second set.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you said he was down 6-1. I was like, I don't think that's how.
No. He was down 6-1 in the
in the tiebreak.
In the tiebreak.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I was so
Sorry.
confused.
I should have specified.
I misheard.
No, you're good. So second set tiebreak, he's down 6-1, and he ends up winning 9-7, comes back, and then he wins the third set 7-6, also in a tiebreaker. So
That's insane. I mean,
I feel like Davidovich Fokina in that second set, when you're up 6-1, right? You know, you have five match points, and your opponent comes back, let's say 6-4. Your back is against the wall, even though you still have, you know, the upper hand. I don't know how you come back from that. That's just.
I think the toughest thing about when you're up 6-1 in a second set tiebreak, like you have match point and you're up that much, and he's like, I can play loose.
Mm-hmm.
I can play loose. I have all this extra like points I can just lose. So I feel like sometimes you see players like they go for like the winner shot.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They'll be up 6-1 and they'll hit a wild shot because they want to just end the match. And so I think that may have partially that could have impacted how he was playing, or he could have been like, just let him, like my opponent's up against the wall, let him make a mistake.
Right. Well, that speaks to Rublev's mental fortitude, you know? Like,
yeah.
I feel like at that point, I'm probably checking out, you know, I'm thinking the game's already lost, you know, I'm going to go home, you know, get in the locker room, shower up, but he stuck in there. And he did it against Rune too in the Aussie Open. He was down match point, I think 3 match points, and he ended up coming back to win. So this dude, he's notorious for that. What you should take away is don't take match points against Rublev for granted.
Yeah, but I mean, also like you got to give Fokina some credit for that, because it would be so easy for after you lose the second set to kind of just fall apart. And
that's true.
And be like, oh, I lost this set. I was so close, and just be kind of locked into that for even like the first few games of the next set, and all of a sudden it just slips away.
Mm-hmm.
And you could lose the third set 6-2.
I know. I remember last year I was playing in my Miami tournament, and the first set ended up going to a tiebreaker. I lost that, and then I was pretty much done the rest of the match. I knew, like, I was so beat up after that. But if I had won that set, or that first set in the tiebreaker, I knew that I could, you know, find the energy to close out the match. But after that, I was like, dude, I can't even play a third set if I wanted. So
yeah,
just kind of lost.
I feel
there.
I feel like you see that in a lot of tournaments. Like you can almost, if you look, it's sometimes interesting if you like look at the way a match is going. You see like the way something happened, and you're like, oh, I bet this guy's broken and he's going to lose the next set just 6-1.
Mm-hmm.
And then it happens because you see, oh, he just lost this set and it was like 13-11 in the tiebreak. And he's like, oh my God, I put so much into that set and then just got nothing out of it.
Mm-hmm. No, I know.
That's one of the harsh realities of tennis is like, once a set is over, it's over.
Oh,
it's just, no matter how hard you tried in that set, it's just done. But then you also see times where like the guy goes up 13-11, like wins at 13-11, and then like takes his foot off the gas and then just loses the next set in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I know. Hate to see that.
Like
too.
it'll be like, oh, 7-6, 1-6, and you're like, oh, well.
All right, and that's the show. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Painting Lines Podcast. Feel free to shoot us a DM or email us any questions or thoughts at paintinglinespodcast@gmail.com.